If you're watching this tonight, I want you to know you found this for a reason. Maybe it's been a long day. Maybe it's been a long year. Maybe something happened today that made everything else feel small and made one thing feel enormous. Too big to carry, too big to fix, too big for you to handle on your own. Before we go any further, if this channel has become a place of peace for you, take a second and hit subscribe and tap that bell so the next one finds you when you need it. It helps this message reach someone else who's having the night you had last week. Now, let's begin. Just for the next little while, you don't have to hold it up, because tonight, we're going to remember something together. Something simple, something you've probably heard before but maybe haven't believed. Not all the way down to the bottom of your heart. God is bigger. Bigger than the thing that's keeping you up at night. Bigger than the fear that won't stop whispering. Bigger than the mistake you keep replaying. Bigger than the diagnosis. Bigger than the silence. Bigger than the empty chair. Bigger than the bank account. Bigger than the person who hurt you. Bigger than the version of yourself you're ashamed of. Bigger than anything. So breathe that in for a second. God is bigger. Not smaller than your problem. Not equal to your problem. Not just barely managing to keep up with your problem. Bigger. And tonight, we're not going to rush past that word like we usually do. We're going to sit inside it and let it hold us, the way it was always meant to. Let's start with the fear. You know the one. It doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it's quiet, a low hum underneath everything else you do. It shows up when you're driving. It shows up right before you fall asleep. It shows up when the phone rings at a strange hour and your stomach drops before you even answer. Fear has a way of making itself feel enormous. It stands right in front of your face, and because it's so close, it blocks out everything else. You can't see past it. You can't see around it. It fills the whole frame. But here's the truth. Fear doesn't want you to know. Fear is not bigger than God. It only feels that way because it's standing so close to you. Stand something small close enough to your eyes, and it can block out the sun. That doesn't mean the small thing is bigger than the sun. It just means it's closer. God is not close the way fear is close. God is not crowding you, pressing in, suffocating you. God is surrounding you, underneath you, around you, ahead of you, and behind you. Not squeezed into the same tight space as your fear, but holding the space itself. So when fear whispers, "This is too much," you can answer back. Not with your own strength, because your own strength is tired tonight, but with the truth. God is bigger than this. God was bigger than this before it started. God will still be bigger than this long after it's over. You don't have to defeat the fear on your own. You just have to remember who's standing with you. That alone can lower your shoulders. That alone can soften your jaw. That alone can slow your breathing. Bigger than the fear. If someone in your life is carrying that same fear right now, this might be exactly what they need tonight too. Go ahead and share it with them. Sometimes the most caring thing you can do is just pass along the reminder that they're not in it alone. Now, let's talk about the mistake. The one you circle back to. The one that shows up right when you're finally starting to feel okay, and it taps you on the shoulder like it's been waiting for the right moment to remind you who it thinks you are. Maybe it was something you said. Maybe it was something you didn't say. Maybe it was a choice that changed the direction of your whole life, and you've spent years wondering what things would look like if you'd chosen differently. Shame has a very specific trick. It tells you that your mistake is the biggest thing about you, that it's the headline, that everyone who looks at you sees it first. But shame is a liar with a small imagination. It can only see backward. It can only see the moment it wants you to relive. It has no ability to see forward, no ability to see redemption, no ability to see what happens when grace enters a story. God sees the whole story, not just the chapter you're ashamed of, not just the paragraph you'd cut out if you could. The whole story, start to finish, including the parts that haven't been written yet. And here's the thing about a God who is bigger than anything. That includes being bigger than your worst decision, bigger than your longest streak of bad choices, bigger than the thing you think disqualifies you. Your mistake is real. Nobody's asking you to pretend it didn't happen, but it is not bigger than the one who made you. It never was. It never will be. So let it go. Just a little right now. Not because it doesn't matter, but because it was never as big as it felt in the middle of the night. You've been holding something that was always small enough for God to carry. You just forgot you didn't have to carry it too. Let's talk about the storm. Maybe it's a health scare. Maybe it's a marriage that feels like it's cracking down the middle. Maybe it's a job that disappeared, or a child who's making choices that keep you awake, or a diagnosis that rearranged every plan you had for the next 10 years. Storms don't ask permission. They don't wait until you're ready. They show up in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday and turn everything sideways. And in the middle of a storm, it's easy to believe that the storm is the biggest thing in the room, that it's louder than everything else, that it's stronger than everything else, that it gets the final word. But storms are not permanent. Storms are loud, but they are not eternal. They pass through. They rage for a season, and then, even when they leave a mess behind, they leave. God does not leave. That's the difference. That's the whole difference right there. The storm is temporary. The presence that holds you through the storm is not. You may not be able to see the other side of this one yet. That's okay. You don't have to see the whole path to trust the one walking it with you. You just have to know that the storm, however loud, however long, is still smaller than the one who set the boundaries of every sea that has ever existed. Bigger than the storm. Even this one. Now, let's talk about doubt. This one's quieter than the others. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rage, it just lingers. It sits in the back of your mind and asks questions you don't always want to answer. Is this real? Am I really being heard? Does any of this actually matter? Is anyone actually there? Doubt can feel like betrayal, like you're not allowed to have it if you call yourself a person of faith. But doubt isn't the opposite of faith. Doubt is what happens when faith is being stretched into something stronger than it was before. You are allowed to have questions. You are allowed to not understand. You are allowed to sit in the not knowing without pretending you have it all figured out. And here's the good news buried inside the hard part. God is not intimidated by your doubt. God is not standing at a distance, arms crossed, waiting for you to get your questions in order before coming close. God moves toward the doubting heart, not away from it. Your doubt is not bigger than God's patience. Your questions are not bigger than God's willingness to stay. You can bring every single one of them, unfiltered, unpolished, and still be met with the same steady presence that was there before you started asking. Bigger than the doubt, even the doubt that scares you the most, the one you haven't said out loud to anyone. Let's talk about what people think. This one sneaks up on you in a different way. It's not a crisis, it's not a diagnosis. It's smaller, quieter, and somehow it can weigh just as much. The comment someone made, the way someone looked at you, the family member who never quite approved, the friend who went quiet, the opinions you imagine people have about your choices, your body, your parenting, your career, your faith, your failures. It's exhausting, carrying what other people think. It's a weight that never actually belonged to you in the first place, and yet somehow you picked it up anyway, and you've been hauling it around for years. Here's something worth remembering tonight. People's opinions are loud because they're close. They're in your inbox, your group chat, your family dinner table. But closeness is not the same as size. A whisper right next to your ear can feel louder than thunder on the other side of the mountain. But it isn't. God's opinion of you was settled before anyone else ever had one, before the comment, before the look, before the comparison. You were already known, already valued, already held, and none of that has changed because someone else decided to have an opinion about your life. You don't need everyone's approval. You were never supposed to carry that much weight. Set it down. Let it be smaller than it's been acting. Bigger than what people think, bigger than what people say. Now, let's talk about weakness. Maybe you feel like you're not enough, not strong enough, not smart enough, not disciplined enough, not patient enough, not put together enough. Maybe you look at your own limitations and feel like they're going to be the thing that finally stops you. Here's something that might be hard to hear at first, but stay with it. Your weakness was never the disqualifying factor you thought it was. It was never a secret God discovered too late after already choosing you. God knew every limitation you carry before you were formed, every single one, and chose you anyway, not despite the weakness being hidden, but with the weakness fully known. That changes things, doesn't it? You're not pulling something over on anyone. You're not one bad day away from being found out. You were never expected to do this in your own strength to begin with. Your weakness is real, but it was never bigger than the strength that holds you up on the days you can't hold yourself up. It was never bigger than the patience that meets you exactly where you are, over and over, without keeping score. You don't have to be enough. You just have to be willing. The rest was never up to you anyway. Bigger than your weakness. Let's talk about the diagnosis, the waiting room, the test results, the words a doctor said that you can't stop hearing on repeat. This one is heavy in a different way because it touches the body, and the body is the thing we live in every single day. When something goes wrong there, it's hard to think about anything else. Fear moves in fast in a moment like this. It starts planning worst-case scenarios before you've even finished processing what you were told. It starts writing an ending before the story has even had a chance to continue. But a diagnosis is information, not a verdict on the size of God. Whatever the number, whatever the stage, whatever the odds someone quoted you in a small room with bad lighting, none of it changes the truth that has held steady since the beginning. God is not smaller than illness. God is not overwhelmed by what overwhelms a hospital. This doesn't mean the road will be easy. It might be one of the hardest roads you've ever walked, but hard is not the same as hopeless. And a body that is struggling is not a soul that has been abandoned. You are not walking through this unseen. You are not walking through this unheld. Whatever the next appointment brings, whatever the next test says, the presence that has carried you this far has not run out of room to carry you further. Bigger than the diagnosis. Let's talk about money for a minute. It feels almost too practical to bring into a moment like this, but so many sleepless nights are filled with numbers. The balance that's too low, the bill that's due, the gap between what's coming in and what's going out. Money can feel like it controls everything, where you live, what you eat, whether you sleep peacefully or toss and turn doing math in your head at 2 in the morning. But money was never meant to be the biggest thing in your life, even when it feels that way. It's a tool, it's useful, it matters for practical things, but it was never designed to carry the weight of your peace. You have been provided for before in ways you didn't expect, through doors you didn't open yourself. That doesn't mean tomorrow will look exactly like yesterday. It means the same hands that provided before are not tired, not out of resources, not confused about your situation tonight. Let the numbers be numbers. Let them not be the loudest voice in the room. There is a provision that has never once run out, even when the math didn't seem to add up. Bigger than the bank account. Bigger than the bill you're afraid to open. Let's talk about the person who hurt you. Maybe it's still an open wound. Maybe it's old, but it still aches when certain memories resurface. A parent who wasn't what you needed. A friend who betrayed you. A partner who left or stayed and hurt you anyway. Words that were said and can't be unsaid. A trust that was broken and never fully repaired. Hurt like that has a way of taking up more space than it should. It replays. It colors the way you see new people, new relationships, new situations that have nothing to do with the original wound, but somehow still get filtered through it anyway. You're not required to pretend it didn't happen. You're not required to rush toward forgiveness before you're ready, as if healing were a deadline instead of a process. But here's something worth sitting with tonight. The person who hurt you, and the hurt itself, is not bigger than the one who can carry what's left of it. You don't have to figure out how to forgive them tonight. You don't have to know what your relationship with them looks like going forward, if it looks like anything at all. You only have to know that the wound, as deep as it runs, has never once been beyond reach. Nothing you're carrying is too damaged to be held. Bigger than the person who hurt you. Bigger than what they did. Bigger than the years it's taken you to even be able to say it out loud. Now, let's talk about the ending you're afraid of. Whatever that means for you tonight. The relationship you think might not make it. The dream you think might not come true. The chapter you think might close before you're ready. Endings are hard because they feel final. They feel like the last word. But very few endings are actually as final as they feel in the moment they're happening. Some endings are just doorways with better lighting on the other side that you haven't reached yet. You don't have to know how this turns out tonight. You don't have to have the ending mapped out before you're willing to keep going. You just have to trust that whatever the ending looks like, it will not be bigger than the presence that walks you into it and through it and out the other side. Even endings are held. Even the ones that break your heart. Even the ones you never saw coming. Bigger than the ending. Bigger than the unknown. Let's talk about loneliness for a moment. Maybe it's the kind that comes from an empty house. Maybe it's the kind that comes from being surrounded by people and still feeling like no one actually sees you. There's a particular ache to loneliness that's different from other pain. It doesn't announce itself with a crisis. It just sits there, quietly, in the space where connection was supposed to be. Loneliness has a way of convincing you that it's permanent, that this is just how it is now, that the isolation you feel is the truth of your life rather than a season inside it. But loneliness, as real as it feels, has never once been bigger than presence. And presence is something you were never actually without, even on the nights it didn't feel that way. You may not have felt it. Feeling and reality are not always the same thing. There were nights you were certain you were alone in a room, and you were not. You are not required to feel it perfectly for it to be true. You are only asked to keep showing up, keep breathing, keep letting the ache be named instead of buried. And slowly, the loneliness starts to lose some of its size. Not because the circumstances changed overnight, but because you remembered you were never actually facing them by yourself, bigger than the loneliness, even the kind that's lasted years. Let's talk about comparison. This one is sneaky because it doesn't feel like an attack. It feels like information. You scroll, you glance, you overhear, and suddenly you're measuring your whole life against someone else's highlight reel. Their house, their marriage, their career, their kids, their body, their peace, or at least the peace they appear to have from the outside. Comparison always leaves you smaller than you started. That's its whole function. It's not designed to inspire you. It's designed to shrink you, quietly, one glance at a time, until you've forgotten what your own life actually looks like, up close. But here's something worth remembering. You were never in competition with anyone else's story. Your life was never supposed to look like theirs. The timeline that feels so far behind schedule to you was never actually measured against anyone else's clock to begin with. Comparison is loud because it's constant. It's in your pocket, it's on your screen, it's available any hour of the day or night. But constant is not the same as true, and it is not bigger than the specific, particular, unrepeatable life that was written for you, and you alone. Bigger than comparison, bigger than the highlight reels that never show the whole story anyway. Let's talk about tomorrow, not the far-off tomorrow, the near one, the one waiting on the other side of this recording, the meeting you're dreading, the conversation you've been putting off, the appointment, the decision, the thing on your calendar that's been sitting there like a weight, getting heavier the closer it gets. Anxiety about tomorrow has a particular trick. It makes you live two places at once. Here, in this actual moment, and there, in a moment that hasn't happened yet and might not happen the way you're imagining it at all. You end up exhausted from a day you haven't even lived. Tomorrow is not bigger than the one who already knows how it goes. Every hour of it, every conversation inside it, every outcome hiding inside it that you can't see yet from where you're sitting tonight. You don't have to solve tomorrow now. You don't have to rehearse it, prepare for every version of it, brace for impact before impact has even shown up. You're allowed to meet tomorrow, when it actually arrives, with exactly the strength that's needed for it. No more, no less, and never a moment too early. Bigger than tomorrow, bigger than the version of it your anxiety keeps writing in advance. If you're still here, still listening, I just want to say, I see you. Drop a word in the comments below, even one word, just to let this community know you made it to this point tonight. It matters more than you think, both to me and to whoever scrolls past it, needing to see they're not the only one up at this hour. Let's slow down for a moment. Let's just breathe, in and out. You've carried a lot tonight, just sitting here and naming things. That takes courage, even in the quiet, even alone. So, let's rest in this for a while. God is bigger than the fear that follows you into your car. Bigger than the mistake you can't stop replaying. Bigger than the storm that rearranged your plans. Bigger than the doubt you've never said out loud. Bigger than what people think when they look at you. Bigger than the weakness you're so tired of apologizing for. Bigger than the diagnosis and the waiting room and the words you can't unhear. Bigger than the loneliness that sits in the empty spaces. Bigger than the comparison that never tells the whole story. Bigger than the numbers that don't add up. Bigger than tomorrow and everything you're afraid it might hold. Bigger than the ending you're afraid of. Bigger than anything. Not almost bigger. Not usually bigger. Not bigger on the good days and smaller on the bad ones. Bigger. Always. Every single time. In every single situation you will ever face, from the smallest inconvenience to the largest heartbreak. Here's what this means for you practically, starting tonight. It means you could put some things down, not because they don't matter, but because you were never meant to carry them alone in the first place. You've been treating yourself like the last line of defense, like if you stop worrying, everything falls apart. But you were never the last line of defense. You were never supposed to be. It means you can rest without feeling like resting means giving up. Rest is not surrender. Rest is trust wearing comfortable clothes. Rest is what happens when you finally believe that someone bigger than you is still working while you sleep. It means you can walk into tomorrow without having all the answers, because you were never required to have all the answers. You were only ever required to take the next step and trust that the ground would hold. It means the thing that's been keeping you up, the fear, the shame, the diagnosis, the doubt, the ending, none of it gets to be the biggest voice in your life anymore. It had a season of being loud. That season doesn't have to define the rest of your story. It means the people who hurt you don't get to be bigger than the healing that's still available to you. It means the loneliness doesn't get to be bigger than the presence that's never actually left. It means comparison doesn't get to be bigger than the specific, unrepeatable life you've actually been given. And it means you can start, tonight, treating things according to their real size instead of the size fear has been assigning them. Small things can go back to being small. Hard things can stay hard without also being the biggest thing in the room. You get to recalibrate. You get to remember what you already knew before the noise got so loud. Say this quietly with me if you want to, or just let it settle over you if speaking feels like too much right now. Whatever I'm facing is not bigger than what's holding me. Whatever I'm afraid of is not bigger than what's holding me. Whatever I've done is not bigger than what's holding me. Whatever is coming is not bigger than what's holding me. I am not alone in this. I never was. Even in the nights I felt the most alone, I was being held by something too big to be shaken by the same things that shake me. Let this settle in slowly. You don't have to rush toward feeling better. You don't have to force peace to arrive on a schedule. Sometimes truth needs time to move from your mind down into the rest of you, into your chest, into your shoulders, into the tight places you've been holding onto for longer than you realized. So stay here a little longer. There's no next thing waiting for you right now. No task, no deadline, no performance to give. Just this. The simple, steady reminder that you are not the one holding everything together. You never were. You were only ever asked to hold on, not to hold it all up. Let your hands unclench if they've been clenched. Let your jaw soften if it's been tight. Let your mind stop rehearsing the conversation, the appointment, the worst-case scenario. None of it is bigger than what's already holding you right now, in this exact moment, whether you can feel it or not. You can let your body settle now. Let your breathing slow all the way down. There's nothing left to prove tonight, nothing left to figure out before you're allowed to rest. The fear will still be smaller than God tomorrow. The mistake will still be smaller than grace tomorrow. The storm will still be smaller than the one who calms it. The diagnosis will still be smaller than the presence that walks every hallway with you. The ending, whatever it turns out to be, will still be smaller than the story being written underneath it. You don't have to hold any of it up by yourself tonight. You never did. Let it be big, let it be real, let it be hard even, but let it also be smaller than what's holding you. Because it is. Because it always has been. Because God is bigger than anything. Rest now. You are held. You are known. You are not carrying this alone. Bigger than anything. Even this. Even now. Even tonight. Before you go, if this helped you carry something a little lighter tonight, subscribe for more of these and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. And if you know someone who needs to hear that they're not carrying this alone, send it their way. Thank you for spending this time here. Sleep well.